Thank you, Mario. Hello, everyone. It's nice to have you all here. So Francesca and me will try to give you the basic information about servitization, and then kind of as a summary from the project that we did a few years ago in developing methodology of transforming products into services. And then, since this Boost for BSO project is about digital transformation and supporting companies in doing that, introducing Industry 4.0 technologies, we try to give the aspects of how servitization can be additional benefit for those who try to introduce and accept their new technologies into their operation. So I will now start with my Mario. You are supposed to enable my screen sharing, so please.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yep. Just a second. Here we go.
Okay, great, thank you. So I hope that you see my screen. So I will now start presentation. So hopefully everything is fine. So me and Francesca will run it. So it is a relatively simple agenda. So we will try to present servitization as a basic idea. The methodology that was developed within TICS Plus project, some benefits and challenges and experiences from the practical pilots and some success stories that we learned during our work with the SMEs, and then to sum up how that methodology can be used as digitalization enabler, and how to understand and how to, sometimes just transform and change the paradigm or the view on the new technologies while implementing them into the company. So as a kind of concept, as a brief idea, what is servitization? So in fact, for those who never been in servitization or never heard about the concept, so it's basically instead of delivering the product, you are delivering the services based on those products. So instead of selling cars, you are enabling people to use the car and pay as they go. Sometimes it's not just so extreme, so it's not total transition from a product to a service. So it can be a combination of services that increase the benefit that pure product is creating for the customers, or increase the product life cycle, or improve reduce the risk of, I don't know, malfunction or the costs for the maintenance. So these services are definitely added to a product in order to increase the value delivered to customers, and in return, of course, it is expected that will be a ground for the new revenues generated by increased value proposition. So in a nutshell, so like the examples are the best way to promote some concepts like that. So in a nutshell, there is no difference between these two tires. In fact, one is European high-end high-tech product that has a low environmentally impact, low footprint, both during the production, but also when it's used on a truck or a car. And the other is not. The other is low-end, cheap product that was produced mainly in order to satisfy the low-end part of the market, but it's actually the total lifetime cost is much higher for that cheaper product. It's also impacts environment, increases the fuel consumption, so also the CO2 emission is much higher. So these elements, you know, from the seemingly two identical products, it impacts on the longer scale. So in order to address that challenge of selling or trying to competing with low-cost tires, the paradigm has to be changed. So in order to promote those strong sides. So instead of competing on a basis of just charging for a price per tire, if that improved product start to charge price per kilometer driven, which includes all savings and all benefit that was created by that product, suddenly more costly product becomes much cheaper or much more efficient than this initially low-cost product. So that can be, so in fact, instead of selling tire, companies start to sell safety, efficiency, durability. So higher level of benefits starts to be not just sold, but promoted and delivered to the customers. So the customers can, manage the benefits that were acquired by or got by this product. The usual or the most known or one of the most famous examples are those examples of transforming jet engines from the fixed costs. So instead of airline companies buying jet engines, which are really expensive pieces of equipment with a high maintenance cost, with increased risks of malfunction if the staff that is doing the maintenance is not very well trained. The company that produced this jet engine tried to leverage the knowledge and the experience and the wisdom that was created by understanding the past performance of the jet engines, and they started to leverage that knowledge into selling power generated by this jet engine, meaning transforming from the airline companies, it transformed from the fixed cost into a proportional cost. So the company would pay for the jet engine only while they are making money because they are flying. So planes, when they are flying, they are making money. When they are grounded because of Corona or some volcano or whatever, these jet engines won't be the cost drivers. And from their perspective, then that might be even a reason to pay a premium price, because they will pay just only for the benefits and without any risk and without any challenges that might come with oh, I have an engine, but my engine doesn't work well or doesn't work at all. So they are just, so the responsibility is shifted from the airline company to a producer, but then also the extra value or extra revenues are also shifted, because that revenue is justified by the additional value that was delivered and created for their customers. So these are two, let's say, concepts which are the most radical. So these are totally or absolutely servitized products. There are some servitization drivers. So not almost every product can be transformed, but some of them are easier to transform into services. So when using product or having product is connected with some kind of risks, so increased knowledge of those who produce the products, so they know how the product will behave, enables them to reduce or to take part of this risks from the owner side, and then base the benefits on that accepted risks from the final user. Again, increased knowledge of the product while in use enables those companies to reduce total cost of ownership, and which also brings or creates opportunity for additional margin into the product lifetime. So even if the final users are paying the same price, those who servitize the product can actually benefit out based on that, because they are making extra profit by knowing better how to maintain the products, and then to reduce that cost of total cost of ownership. Of course, that transformation of fixed cost into a proportional cost is always, but not always, but especially with the products of high value, so with the very complicated equipments or the very valuable product, can be a great value proposition, because it also reduces barriers for consumption. So the companies would be much more motivated to buy expensive piece of equipment if they are not supposed to pay in advance, but they can pay as they use or as they go. And then the last element, which is actually a driver that can improve the digitalization, but also that can leverage that digitalization initiatives within the servitization transformation, is that data can become a value. Of course, I will try to address that. So just data is not creating a value, but you know, transformation of data into information, knowledge, and later wisdom can become a value which in fact creates extra benefits. So in order to enable companies to in fact transform their products into services, we crafted or combined something called things plus service innovation methodology. It's relatively simplified methodology adapted to the manufacturing SMEs, which has some challenges and limitations of which things they can use. The methodology was based on the set of specific tools and elements. So we try to be inspired with Legos. So we are trying to combine distinctive actions, tools, activities into a methodology that at the end allows you to create really complex structures and complex services and transform the business model, transform relationship with the customers, and then to you know, create additional values for the customers, but also the revenues for the companies if all things done appropriately and with the common sense. So the idea is not to create services just for the sake of services, but to create services in order to improve lives or operations of the customers if it is a B2B markets, and then to command additional revenues based on that improved value proposition. So our basic bricks, or the basic tools that we used, or the concepts, are partly from the startup body of thinking. So customer development and lean startup tools, design thinking tools, and the concepts tools and elements from disruptive innovation theory, how to create new products and services from the blue ocean strategy, either WOOC or, if you want, blue ocean strategy tools. Of course, it all ends or maybe starts with the transformation of the business model. So, you know, when you start to charge for the service instead of product, it's by definition business model transformation, and that in order to enable flexibility and let's say real-time response from the company's perspective. We also introduce assumption-based planning, so it's not the planning process during the implementation, because the methodology integrates also implementation, is based on the assumption, which allows companies not to wait for a longer period to see if things are working, but to see if the things or improvements or the services will create benefit for the customers, and the markets or the customers will respond during the process of development, so that adaptations and transformation and pivots of the service can be introduced in the as they are developed. So that is also something from the startup management methods that are developed for the startup and development of startups. So service innovation methodology had 5, let's say, steps or 5 phases. First 3 are development phases. The second 2 are the phases which are focused on implementation, and then kind of testing and making the kind of formalization and petrification of the newly developed business model. So sometimes, and what we saw that was the kind of challenge for other service innovation methodologies is that they stop when the innovation concept is developed. We wanted to expand that reach of the methodology in order to support companies till the end, or till the first revenue, or when the overall initiative is checked on the market and confirmed by the revenues generated. So that's why we introduced these 2 implementation steps, in order to not to be just on the theoretical side, but also to make sure that everything will be implemented, or at least tested on the market, and then that the lessons will be learned appropriately, and that the company will anyway have benefit from the process itself. What we learned during the implementation, Francesca will give more information about that, is that there is also a need for the, let's say, maybe kind of a 0 step. So for the initial step, to we call it like a framing, so that the initial interview with the company, with the owners or the management of the company, will kind of create a joint vision. What is the let's say state they want to achieve? What are their goals from this innovation initiative? Just to have a joint direction of action. Of course, based on the reality check that we try to also pass with the company management, so that the best practice is that if the company doesn't have any experience with the services, so it maybe it is too ambitious to start to offer 100% servitized product in the just form of the pure service, because that will try to or need a lot of changes and a lot of transformation. So in order to be sure that benefits will be delivered and that something tangible will be created both for the company and their customers, we try to set initial expectation and initial goals in a way that they will be ambitious, but they will be based on some kind of reality check of what is possible from the company's perspective, from their capabilities, competences, resources, information, willingness to change, because this initiative includes also change in the process of servitization. So to describe a little bit more in the detail these 5 steps. So the first step is the step that starts this process of paradigm change from the product perspective into service perspective. So the first step is to enable companies to maybe see how they understand, or to document how they understand which are the customer preferences, why the customer are in fact having relationship with them, what is from their perspective value proposition that customers are getting out of their products, which are the main features that enable them to actually deliver these values to the customer. So that shift from the product features into the elements or the parts of the value proposition is the shift that we want initially to kind of foster, hoping that the customer will, the company will accept that, customers maybe not are not interested in their products. Customers are interested in solving some their own specific problems, challenges, and issues, and they are using their product. Sometimes they might be using something else. So the part of this first step is also screening the competitive landscape, but not just competitors, but also substitutes, workarounds, sometimes even non-consumption. So the first step is the initial paradigm change. The second step is trying to bring companies' focus into the much deeper customer understanding with okay, let's see what your customer really are. Many companies, surprisingly many companies, especially product-oriented companies, pretty much ignore their customers. They know that their customers are there because they are sending invoices out, but they never thought about the customer preferences, who they are, why they are, how they fit into their business model or into their lives. So for that is also interesting to create something called customer journey, to see how the company or products fits into customer lives or customer value chain if it is B2B. And just those insights might actually start to be ground for new services or new improvements of the value delivered to the customer. Sometimes it's just still on the, okay, let's make this product features and let's adapt product, but sometimes it actually directs a company to create services or something that will allow customers to better use or to fully use the features that a specific product has or brings to the customers. So this step, in fact, can end with initial servitization concept, either low or basic or even total, which also brings or give hints how that might impact to customer journey or to benefits that customers will have. Based on that initial servitization concept, it's the idea is to to create a full concept of a new service, to design the service, but also to design which resources, which processes, which values or criteria for decisions should be adapted or transformed or accepted. So that also enables a company to formulate initial requests for business model transformation or adaptation. So how they are going to transform their value proposition, or how that value proposition will be delivered to customers, maybe how they are going to transform their revenue streams, or how they are going to create profit or make or profit from that relationship, or that transform the relationship with the customers, and then to finally to draft new or adapted customer journey, which includes this servitized or product service system, which is innovation from the customer and the company perspective. Once that service is designed, the idea is to start with initial implementation. So to check which elements need to be in place, how the elements of, because that might be a really new topic or new ground for the company. So elements of the lean startup approach should be accepted. So implementation, testing, adapting, and improving, which can be a really radical kind of paradigm change for traditional manufacturing company. That is for that it's really important that management or the owners should be on board, at least with the support and with that they are really kind of fully involved in decision-making process, because things won't work if they are not aligned with this proposed changes. And at the end of the day, once the initial testing and things kind of checked and everything seems to be having some kind of inner logic and common sense, and it creates a result. So then the final task is to reinforce new business model or the adapted business model. So new elements that goes against the traditional way of we are selling products, and that's the most important part. So that to see that new business model will be supported with management, but also with some kind of organizational rules, and it will be integrated into organizational strategy, so that can be survive the organizational inertia that is existing in any company, small or big one. But it seems that it's really sometimes it can be really strong in a production-oriented company. So that's let's say our methodology in a nutshell. You can there are some links, or you just Google Things Plus Service Innovation Methodology. It will bring you to the knowledge exchange where you can find documents. You can also Google Boost for BSL because the project Boost also integrated the results from the previous projects. So you can also find all these guidelines, tools, and additional information about the methodology. Francesca will give you more information also about some certification for the Servitization Manager. So that's how you can learn more and start using this in your practices. What is maybe interesting to share before the cases is that we learned that manufacturing SMEs are so servitization is not something new. So it already exists for the decades. But from the perspective of the multinational companies that has resources, knowledge, and everything, sometimes capital, sometimes time, and they are able to, make that happening and supporting customers with that. From the manufacturing SMEs perspective, there are some barriers to implement, or there are some reasons why they are lagging behind. First of all, they don't know how to do it. So there is a huge lack of competencies. They are focused on making products. They don't know how to in fact, deliver services, how to organize themselves, how to organize the structures, how to set the scene in order to be able to deliver services which will create additional value for the customers beyond pure maintenance services, which they sometimes even that is out of the scope for some of the manufacturing companies. The problem with the SMEs is that they usually have a not very long-term thinking, so they are supposed to pay bills every month, and if the project that introduce or needs longer thinking can be challenging and can be sometimes abandoned just because we don't have time to think or we don't have enough time to solve those challenges. That's why we let's say downsize methodology and try to fit it into 16 to 12 months framework from the initial point to the financial results, hoping that that will fit into the SMEs planning and doing business horizon. The product-based mindset is a challenge. So, if the most important thing is to produce high quality product, that's from the manufacturing or engineering side. From the customer side, sometimes products are overshooting their needs. Sometimes products are much better, or some customers cannot, in fact, consume all the value that the products is bringing to them, and if they are not able to consume all the values and all the features that products brings, then they probably won't be happy to pay the full price, and then the company will be open for the low-end competitors. And both as a result of everything, we also learned that SMEs, manufacturing SMEs, can be really, really conservative and not quite reluctant to change. So even when some initiatives are kind of imposed by the senior management or owners, the organization itself can oppose it, not directly but indirectly, and that might cause a fail of the project itself. So all those reasons or challenges for SMEs should be taken in account when servitization initiative is kind of implemented, and especially if the goal is to have a successful implementation of new services. Now I will give floor to Francesca, because she will continue with the presentation, and I will go back with discussion about how to use this when you are trying to implement new digital technologies. Francesca and Mario, please, it's your floor.
Thank you, Boris. I will just share Francesca's presentation and we can start.
Thanks, Mario. Is maybe the case to ask if there are questions to be taken before my part?
We can address all the questions later when we are finished with the whole presentation. Yeah.
Okay, super, then let's go. So good afternoon from my side, and thanks for being here, of course, to listen to this introduction to servitization for small and medium-sized enterprises, and in particular for manufacturing companies. As I was introduced very well, my name is Francesca Pozzar, and I have been the Things Plus coordinator on behalf of Friuli Innovazione, a business support organization that is based in Udine, northeastern Italy. I will present briefly what we have learned by testing this methodology that Boris presented to you with companies on the field, which is quite interesting. I mean, the lessons learned are quite interesting due to the fact that entrepreneurs' opinion was very similar across countries and industries. So Mario, please, we can move to the second slide. Super. So, as you have heard, service innovation methodology by Things Plus has been tested on the ground during the project involving a group of around 100 companies from 9 countries. They were all SMEs, so small and medium enterprises, according to the EU definition, and 2 different rounds have taken place in late 2018 and in 2019. In various Central European regions. The results have been compared to learn what did work and what needed to be improved from the process perspective, meaning basically how to answer to this question: how do companies shall implement this methodology for taking the best out of it? Of course, also quantitative results are a good indicator to understand if this methodology is really bringing added value into manufacturing small and medium SMEs, in small and medium companies that are willing to start this journey towards servitization. And so, as you can see in the slide, if we start from numbers, you have to bear in mind that during the project we have taught to more than 200 people among entrepreneurs, managers, and business innovation practitioners our methodology. And then, as I told you already, almost 100 companies were directly involved, and 94 product-based new service concepts have been developed. Not all of them have been implemented, of course, during the 6 months period of the pilot action, but many of them have taken their start, let's say. In terms of medium-term results, what we have learned roughly 1 year, 1 year and a half after the end of the pilot action is that these 93 companies that completed the process altogether created almost 140 new high qualified jobs, full-time equivalent, to deliver specific to deliver these new services that have been created starting from the product analysis and using our methodology. And the estimated revenue the next year in 2022 is about 6.4 million euro. A similar amount, something bigger, 6.7, is being requested by the companies to different public and private funding sources to complete the innovation projects behind or connected to their servitization concepts. Indeed, I can say that the average satisfaction of the companies in the project, in piloting the methodology, was really high. So next slide, please, Mario. Thank you. Now, let's change perspective for a second. There is a list in the slide of the key success factors that have been identified by comparing the experiences of implementing the service innovation methodology in diverse regions by BSOs with a different organizational culture. So despite the deployment strategy and setting was slightly different between regions, in order to be, of course, more convenient to companies' habits and expectations. So in some cases, we had one-to-one approach. In some cases, we had a group approach, and so on. The strengths recognized both by the business support organizations and by the entrepreneurs conveyed on a very similar list across countries. From the practitioner's perspective, in particular, great appreciation was given to these hallmarks of the tested approach, which are the team, which means that companies that entered into the piloting were asked to involve at least 2 people from the senior management, from the top management, including possibly someone from operations. The second point that was really appreciated was the fact that the program is comparable to a gym, so to a laboratory. And in many cases, it was conducted with a group approach where we had more than one company at a time doing the exercises, of course, the companies that were grouped together were from different industries to avoid the problem of disclosing sensitive information to potential competitors, and also to overcome the problem of reluctancy that, of course, many times we found. The third aspect that was really important was the fact to have a coach approach, which is different from consultancy. So the coach that was leading the program and was guiding the companies in implementing the program on their own cases was someone that had a strong business innovation background, and of course that learned about our methodology, but this person was not offering solutions to the companies. So the idea was to accompany them, giving them the tools, giving them the proper sequence, giving them advice, but not to provide answers. Fourth, we had tutors properly trained on the methodology that were supporting companies in their day-to-day implementation obstacles they might encounter. Of course, as Boris mentioned it already, all the process is about idea generation, and examples were provided and very much appreciated because they came from different industries, from both from B2B and B2C, from tech and no tech companies and examples. Of course, another part that was really characterizing the program is the fact that the tools have a predefined sequence and tempo. So it was flexible, of course, but not totally free. And we established that companies had to finish their journey within 6 months, and each phase should have a predefined duration, which needed more or less to be respected. Finally, the commitment was very important, and it has its own counterpart in the pitfalls that we will see in a second. Commitment to finish the program that we asked to the top management in the beginning. So this was very important, and very important was the fact that we asked companies to share their one individual, real and actual need into the program to be addressed. I won't say to be solved, but at least to be addressed. Mario, we can move on to pitfalls now. Thanks. And of course, not everything was perfect, obviously. Here there are some factors in the list that somehow hindered or even changed our initial assumption concerning our methodology for SMEs. Some factors, as you can imagine, are strictly related with those reasons presented by Boris for SMEs' delay in catching the servitization opportunity. We speak here about the difficulty of being consistent and partake during the whole program across the 6-month period, which itself it's a really ambitious point to complete the 5 steps, but at the same time it was supposed to be the good trade-off between the the methodology and the time availability of companies. Another problem that we had to face is that of not involving key personnel with the proper background and decision-making power in the exercise. So we had some companies that appointed low-level staff. And in those cases, the exercise was not that effective. Or when we had companies with poor engagement because of their basically mindset, which was really product-centric, and they didn't want to move their point of view. And in cases where we had companies that were very, very worried about their daily staff, so their short-term thinking that Boris was mentioning. Another factor that in the end we discovered was wrong is that companies can apply the methodology without guidance. Initially, we thought that the methodology was somehow self-standing, but this turned to be false. The human factor from both sides is essential and crucial for the success. So Let's move on to the next slide, Mario, please. And here you can see that basically those BSOs that were involved in the initial project formalized the sort of agreement to continue implementing this methodology and to improve it. So meaning this is something live, and there is a formal commitment somehow from different organizations across different countries to pursue the goal of servitization literacy among SMEs. And this is also the reason why we are here. We are implementing a new project and we are doing such type of webinars. Next slide, please, Mario. I will now go to the last part of my presentation. We will talk about some success stories. There is a resource which is available also through the links that Mario shared in the chat. There is this e-catalog that collects more than 60 business cases coming from that pilot action I was mentioning. And next slide, I will present here 3 cases from 3 countries, just to give you the flavor of what we, not we, but what those companies reached in the pilot action. We have one case here from a company in Poland, Central Poland, Łódź region. Their proper industry is water supply and sewage installations, equipment for water treatment. It is a medium company, relatively young, because it was established in 2007. And they developed a servitization concept that basically is the most typical one, a pay-per-use business model. They are experts in wastewater treatment, and they develop, design, and deliver and install technologies for that purpose to clean impurities in water and return the clean water into the systems, and solving specific issues in this field of solid liquid separation is the core business. So their clients are municipal plants and any big industry, for instance, in chemicals or steel or paper production. During the project, the company developed a long-term concept, a concept of long-term rental of filtration equipment for wastewater treatment. And the idea, of course, is that of changing their basic offer into pay-per-use, where they ensure the optimal performance of the product and the efficiency of operations for the equipment. Meanwhile, the customer will only pay for the amount of filtered sewage. And this is something that could not happen within the 6 months, but something that the company was strongly pursuing by asking money from national schemes, if I'm not wrong, to be able to afford the problem of the different cash flow model. So next business case, next slide. Thank you. Latofres is an Italian company. This was served by Friuli Innovazione. The industry is the mechanic sector. This one is a small company and quite old because it was established in 1979. They are focused on high precision turning and milling operations on different types of materials like steel, aluminium, titanium. And they are characterized by high productive flexibility and efficiency, which means that the company was somehow kind of smart before entering this pilot action. They were already into the mood of digitalization. Their clients are mainly Italian and European companies, in particular from Germany, operating in different industrial sectors, from electronics to medical equipment, textile machinery, hydraulic and pneumatic, and so on and so forth. So very heterogeneous group. The idea developed thanks to this servitization methodology was to manage raw materials coming from and owned by customers, in particular German ones, in an innovative way, using the company warehouse, of course, adequately equipped with sensors and whatever technology was needed until the production order from the customer itself was demanding for this material. The benefit, of course, is quite clear, in particular in this moment, because the customer have the possibility to purchase huge amounts of raw materials at a lower costs. And at the same time, Latofres will of course store and use this material according to the customer's product orders. And from the customer side, there is a possibility to monitor day by day the production process and the availability of all materials on the warehouses. And this was quite interesting case. Then we have the third one. Next slide, please, Mario. This is the Croatian case. It's Megamont. Maybe some of you know it. The industry in this case is that of automation technologies. We have again a small enterprise here, established in 1993. They produce and install automated garage doors, automatic access control systems, and parking systems for different premises like private properties, parking spaces, or public facilities, mainly this last one, so public-owned facilities. And instead of selling the equipment, they come up with the idea to provide the service of operating the access system while keeping the installed equipment in their ownership, which is again quite complete case of servitization, let's say. The concept was named monitoring and managing the automated access control systems, and is based on providing the customer with the complete solution without having to buy the equipment, of course. The customer, in this case, will be charged based on a different financial model that will allow more stable revenue flows for Megamont, of course, and also will minimize variable costs for the customers, bringing more fidelization between Megamont and its clients based on and long-term relationships, let's say. Okay, this was my third one. I did not want to bring too much. I have one last slide, because since I have mentioned that one of the pitfalls that we had was somehow discovering that the methodology is hard to be applied by the companies by their own if they do not have in their HR in their HR someone that is particularly experienced in such kind of strategies. We decided to pursue an opportunity together with one of the 7th largest companies in the world about certifications. And in 2020, we launched with Bureau Veritas an international voluntary certificate scheme for servitization managers that is based, of course, on literature servitization concepts, but also onto our Things Plus methodology. And this is an opportunity to provide companies a list of international practitioners that have the proper relevant knowledge and capability to coach them during the journey if they want to. The certified people is searchable through a public register, and this is, of course, a way to grant the quality of the preparation of these professionals. So that's everything from my side, and I'm, of course, very happy to answer your questions, if any, later on.
Thank you very much, Francesca. I believe that we are now going back to Boris.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will continue with my screen sharing. So, in a way, servitization and digitalization has a kind of intrinsic relationship. I don't know. It's so, you know, it's kind of it's very, very difficult to servitize some products without digitalizing them. And so usually digitalization is a prerequisite for servitization, but not always is the other way around. So it, you know, it works like that saying, or I will paraphrase it, is, you know, sun is yellow, but not everything yellow is the sun. So servitized products are digitalized, but not all digitalized products or the businesses deliver services to their customers, which are based on this digitalization or new technologies initiatives. And that is kind of in a way too bad. And that sometimes is just a waste of opportunities. That's why we wanted to kind of share this concept, because at some point when you already invested in new technologies and applied them in various parts of your value chain within the company, it's a shame not to integrate that better or connect the dots, maybe from another perspective, customer's perspective, and then offer those services as additional value for the customer, but also as an additional revenue stream. So, you know, just to finish with this digitalization and service relationship or discussion, you know, you have, you know, regular scooter can just be bought, but digitalized scooter, we can see them everywhere around us, and you can just, you know, take them, use them if they are charged, and then leave them as you go. And if they were just analog scooters, then that would be impossible to use them as a service, and they are, you know, it would be possible just to have them. Before going into discussion about how to look at digitalization initiative within the company from the different perspective, just a few words, or just to mention how servitization, which perspective or which elements of any business can be transformed by the servitization. It's definitely you need to change customer perception, or how the company, and also relationship with the customer, and how the company understand what customers are buying, in order to be able to offer servitized products. So much deeper customer understanding and customer knowledge is needed, which is usually beneficial, especially on the long term, because that enables company to adapt much more in line with the, you know, which are the customer requirements. That enables companies to transform their value proposition, so either products, and improve their products, improve those products in those dimensions for which improvements the customers are willing to pay for, or add services for which the customers are willing to pay for. Otherwise, those innovations that are not in line with the customer perception and won't bring additional value to the customers are those, you know, innovation which will at the end of the day be very unsuccessful, or will be failure because, you know, customers didn't respond positively. That of course has huge impact on the way how the company makes money and how, you know, delivers those products and services to customers, and how, or, you know, how the elements of those money making logic were integrated and combined. It of course asked company to shift just from the, okay, we are the most important thing is to have a high quality products, and we are just improving products, and those who are not interested in better products are not worthy or whatever. So the organizational culture can be, its shift can be supported. It's required in order to deliver servitization or to implement servitization initiative, but also can be supported by servitization initiative, and that might enable more customer-oriented or market-responsive organizational culture. And of course, it's impossible to implement any of that if that's not verified and accepted within the organizational strategy. But from the digital transformation, what is, as I said early on today, data is the key element that, enables new services. And any digital transformation, any digital technology, any Industry 4.0 technology requires and creates data. And in every interaction in the digital world, in effect, and generates data, and the companies and the parts of the companies and the organizational silos of the companies will create either huge amounts of data or big amounts of data. It's not now it's even not critical if you create abundant amounts of data, as long as you start to understand it. So the key challenge or the key question is, are you using that data in a meaningful way? Do you understand that? And if you understand that, if you understand or if you create knowledge based on that, why not use that for something that will enable you to create additional services, which will create additional revenue streams? And that's the basic logic. So if you suddenly have a lot of information about when your customers are using your products, how they are using, how your products are behaving, when your products are malfunctioning, in which situation your products are misused, in which situation your products won't function appropriately, when they will be underused, when they can be shared. So all this data can be transformed into information, knowledge, and insights, and that can be used in order to predict what will happen, and that can be, of course, a ground for new services, new values, and then new revenues. Basic logic can be, I would try to, kind of visually represent, but since you are already creating data, and then when you put those data into context, so it will become information. So the company will be aware of what is going on, if what is happening. That will enable company to start to know how it's and start to create knowledge. So how the products are used, what is going on with the products, what will be, what happened, which of course, if the company has enough experience, gives competitive edge, if you want, or at least gives a much better position to understand what will be in the future with specific product, also compared with the customers. Let's move, do not think on the competitor side, but if you can, and that why, so that's okay, good. Sometimes it's good, or new services can be created on the past information, or at least creating some kind of scoreboards for the customers. But what's really source is if the company is enabled to support customers with what will be in the future and how they can, better use specific product, how they can extract additional value from the product, how they can sometimes not buy product but share product, because just having the product is too much because they are not using it. So when the company has enough data that can be transformed into knowledge, information and then knowledge, then the wisdom, if you want, will be created, and that can be a ground for the services. So the services in that way is only possible for those who have the data and the information from multiple sources. So the customers, so final users, unless they are really big companies or they are really big users, are not even in the position to, get those insights by themselves, because, usually they are not experts, they are not into products, they are just using, if you have a huge air conditioning systems, you're just, that it works or it doesn't work. Sometimes it needs to be reset in order to start working, but other fine-tuning or maybe getting information in how can you use the system in order to reduce the energy consumption, in order to better manage the overall building, then for that you need to have a much bigger pool of information, and that is only available if you have multiple sources of those information. So that is the basic logic for digitalization of creation of the services based on digitalized equipment, but also based on digitalized value chain that is within the company. If you look from the company perspective, value chains, of course you have factory, or the manufacturing site, that is usually covered with some kind of ERP or CAD/CAM or any other, let's say, abbreviation that supports manufacturing robots or how to, manage the factory plant or factory floor in a better way. So yes, initially you are digitalizing your operations. Then of course it makes sense also to integrate that with the inbound warehouse or outbound warehouse or internal logistics. So pretty much you now have how the things are or have digitalized the stuff that is going within the boundaries of your manufacturing company. Then the next level is to integrate that with the other manufacturing companies or other warehouses, logistics that will bring other people's stuff or supplies needed for your production or for finishing of your products. And then of course it's interesting to integrate that with your or someone else's outbound logistics, and then with the information that you have about the customers and like CRM or whatever, but also the after sale services. And this is what is usually digitalized from the company perspective. So, and it goes from the internal drive to reduce costs, to increase efficiency, to increase your capability to produce more, or to produce just in time, or to produce adapted to specific needs that are based on the overall market situation. Since you already have or you start to digitalize, it makes sense also try to see how these elements of specific digital initiatives within the company can be integrated from the customer perspective, from the perspective of creating better insight or additional services for the customers, either to improve the maintenance, to take part of the maintenance within the company, to create additional value because you are aware of in advance, even before the customer is aware that something will happen or there is a need from the customer perspective, which is not rationalized yet, but it will be because you know their past behavior, and the past might be a good predictor of the future, especially if you have enough information that can bring. From the digitalization perspective, servitization or creation of additional services is just about changing the perspective. So yes, do not think of digital initiatives as something that is important in order to reduce costs. Try to think of digital initiative as something that might be interesting or important from the customer perspective. Sometimes these things can be even really small, like, when you buy a book and when you get the information that book just came to a specific warehouse in Spain, and then the next morning you get information that book came into a specific warehouse in Germany, and then it's on the way to the specific warehouse in, it's not it's already the data and information was already there. There was just a need for an interface that has to be shared in a customer-friendly way with a customer, which might be happy with that information and which might create a bias or a preference from the customer perspective in order to choose the same supplier in the future. So that's actually not revenue generating service, but preference generating service. From the business model perspective, for those who are into business model canvases, the inside out digitalization is mostly focused on the internal elements or resources and activities that should drive the cost down. Servitization-oriented digitalization pretty much uses other same elements, gives extra emphasis on the digitalization of the products as those who actually carries value proposition towards customers, digitalization of distribution channels, like this information where your stuff is and how the stuff will, and when the stuff will come to me, but also in order to enable that services can be delivered, not just products. Sometimes you need to have a different distribution channel in order to be able to deliver service. Remember scooters. If you want to sell scooters, then you will use as distribution channel stores where, I don't know, for sports goods or for bicycles or whatever, where the electric scooters can be bought. But if you digitalize scooter, then distribution channel suddenly is a street, and someone who will go there, identify them, locate them, identify them, and pick them up and charge them and recharge them and bring them back to the streets or the picking spots where the people can get, again, take those scooters and just start using them. So these additional two elements are usually needed to be more digitalized or to be appropriately digitalized in order to enable additional revenues or the different revenues to be generated. So what I wanted to say is if digitalization initiative is in place, sometimes additional services are just in a matter of perspective, in a matter of maybe adding some elements or just better structuring or start using information which are still already in the database, but in a more meaningful and more customer-oriented way. And that will again bring you benefits that comes with servitization, and benefits with the when servitization initiative is done well, that those benefits are almost guaranteed. So yes, they are, they can enable small companies to be competitive compared with the big companies. So the local companies can easily compete with the global companies, unless the global companies correct the way of servitization and then started to offer locally servitized products. Servitized products are, very difficult to compare because you are comparing benefits and pay per use or pay per delivered benefit with a product that has to be bought in full and then used. And then products that then are used, if they are just compared based on price, then they can be commoditized, and then the cheaper version wins. Remember that initial story of 2 tires. Servitized customers or customers that start to use your services can be locked in your value chain, and sometimes they can be create a culture of service use or integrate those services into their products. And when you are in someone's culture, then it's also very difficult to kick you out of that behavior. Like I said, it should improve new technology adoption rate, because it can leverage that new technology by creating new revenues. But new technologies are prerequisite for servitization. So then companies are starting to implement new technologies, knowing that those technologies are important if they want to offer servitized products. So, if you start to use new technologies into customer-facing processes, then it might be easier also to implement those technologies into your logistics, into your inbound logistics, into your internal manufacturing processes. So that then, once you start using technology for the revenues, then you can start also to use technologies to reduce costs in other processes in order to increase overall profits. And that's when these initiatives are done well, then overall profits will increase in a relatively limited time frame, and that can be measurable and manageable. So it wouldn't be like just I have a feeling that this new services actually created new income, because you can measure those services and you can confront them with the costs that were created by new technologies that were supposed to enable those new services. With this, I will, thank you, and I will, ask you now, open floor for questions if there are those who are wanted to know more or want to get more details about the elements that were just mentioned, but maybe not explained well.
Thank you, Boris. Thank you very much. Thank you both to you, and thanks to Francesca also. Now, if anyone has any questions, you can feel free to even turn on your microphone. You don't have to write your questions into the chat. If you want to join the discussion, you are free to ask any questions now. In the meantime, I will also paste a link to a feedback questionnaire. I will kindly ask you to fill out a really short feedback questionnaire about our session. You can also fill it out later just click on the link in the comments. I will also send you the link later in an email. Do we have any questions at this point? I guess everything is clear. If not, we will close the session. I wish to thank you all for participating in our webinar, and I hope to see you soon on other lectures and webinars we are.
Yeah, just to finish, we are hoping to start Servitization Manager courses. That was our plan, like almost for 2 years now. But the problem is that that's impossible on a distance. So there is too much soft skills and too much interaction in order to make someone, let's say, experienced or ready to start to work as a servitization consultant or manager. So we are unfortunately forced to postpone that, but hopefully this spring it will be available. So stay tuned, and I hope that I will see you, some of you, on these trainings.